Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
10 minutes left. Yeah, but there's still some time. It's not the final score. We need more than the numbers we're given. Show us you live and breathe the game. You're more than a name. That's what we came for. We can bring you more than the score. Every story. Let's take this thing off of the field into the real world away from the numbers.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. There's still time. The AFTN Soccer Show, broadcasting on CITR Radio 101.9 FM from the unceded Musqueam Territory at the University of beautiful British Columbia. I'm your host, Michael McCall, and I'm flying solo in this episode. No, don't turn off. I know it's a long show, a lot to listen to just me, but it won't just be me, because I've got some fun interviews and audio to bring you along the way. We'll also bring you our usual mix of great music, and we've got a lot of football chat to bring you as well, as we'll be talking Whitecaps. 2 matches for the Caps this past week. We'll talk about the Canadian Championship draw in Winnipeg against Valour, and we'll look at the game on Saturday down in Utah against RSL. An absolutely massive come from behind. 3 points taken by the Caps. And how big might those 3 points be come the end of the season? That will come in this part. In the next part, we've got a feature interview, a special feature interview for you as we sit down with Whitecaps CEO and Sporting Director Axel Schuster to chat about the club's historic season so far, the looming Cup final, and a few other things as well. You don't want to miss that. And in part 3, we'll talk about and bring you some audio around the plethora of Whitecaps players that have been called up for international duty and will be missing a big batch of games for the Whitecaps in June and probably into July. A lot to get into. Zach is away on a work trip this weekend. I wanted to get this out a bit earlier because we hope to bring you 2 podcasts this week. We'll have the one that you're currently listening to, and then after the Minnesota game on Wednesday, we'll bring you one Thursday, maybe Friday, looking at that game and also looking ahead to next Sunday's CONCACAF Champions Cup final in Mexico City against Cruz Azul. And I've got some fun interviews to bring you on that. I'll just give you the teaser of one. We finally get to sit down and have a chat with the Whitecaps Mexican striker Daniel Rios. So watch for that dropping later in the week. So a lot of Whitecaps chat to get into. So let's get right into it now, and we'll kick things off by looking at the first game of the week. Took place in Winnipeg on Tuesday night as Valour put in a valiant display, and the bottom team in the CPL shocked many, coming away with a 2-2 draw in the first leg of their Canadian Championship quarter-final. The Whitecaps looking for the 4-peat, got off to the perfect start through Sam Arakugbe's 6th-minute goal, but pegged back before half-time through a goal from Sean Hundle. Was there a foul on Isaac Boehmer in the build-up? I think there's a good case for it, but nothing Boehmer could do to keep out a rocket from Bruno Figueiredo in the second half to give Valour a shock lead before Ali Ahmed saved the Whitecaps' blushes. And despite the Whitecaps' best efforts and throwing on some of their big guns, that one finished as a 2-2 draw. The second leg goes at BC Place 6 weeks away. Ridiculous. July 9th. But Valour's made a game of it, and the Whitecaps can't take them too lightly because they'll be up for it. And a few things to talk about in this game. We'll talk about away goals, we'll talk about TV coverage, and of course, we'll talk a little bit more about the match itself. And with the matches coming thick and fast, and the desire to get as many players playing as much minutes as they can to keep everyone at their top levels, Jesper Sorensen was always going to field a rotated lineup for the Valour game, and he ended up making 10 changes from the team that started down in Austin on Saturday. Emmanuel Sabi, the only player to get the start in both of those games. Now, on paper, still a strong lineup, a very Canadian heavy one, 6 Canadians starting that. And Philip DeSantis, I mentioned in the match report, it's kind of hard to say whether this was the main starting 11 for Valour, because he's changed so much over the season. He's still trying to find, I think, who his strongest 11 are. But from what I've seen of Valour, it was probably a near strongest 11 that I think you would pick for them. And they were ready for the fight. In last week's show, we played you some audio from Phil where he was speaking about it being a gala. And if you're at the gala, then you've got to dance. And Valour certainly did that. I've watched all of Valour's games this season. I was at Winnipeg for their game against TSS in the last round, where they just scraped by in the end. And if it wasn't for a goal line clearance in the 92nd minute, that game could have gone to penalties. And then who knows who the Whitecaps may have ended up playing this week. It could have been TSS at Swangard. It was Valour. They made the most of their opportunity. They played the best football I've seen them play, not just this season, but for most of last season as well. And they really, really made a game of it. Now, in saying that, when you look at the stats, Vancouver did dominate 68% to 32% in terms of possession. Valour, though, outshot the Whitecaps 12-11. 5 on target for Valour, 4 for the Whitecaps. And that kind of played into something that Jesper Sorensen said after the game, where he wasn't happy. He just felt that the team were dribbling the ball for no particular reason, no purpose. They kind of moved away from the game plan that he wanted. And it really only took when some of the big hitters came on and some substitutions were made in the second half, and Ali Ahmed came on in the 65th minute. Ranko Veselinovic had come on in the 54th minute, but that was due to a knee injury to Bilal Halbouni. Sebastian Berhalter in the 76th, Brian White in the 64th, and it was those substitutions that did bring a bit of spark, did help Vancouver get the equaliser. And I think the Caps will feel disappointed they didn't come away with the victory, but at least they didn't come away on the end of a defeat. Extended their unbeaten run across all competitions, and we'll get more into that when we talk about Saturday's game against RSL. But I mean, all in all, it was a good cup tie. It's what you expect when it's a big team against lower league opposition. The lower league team do play out their shirts. The return leg, the second leg on July the 9th, the Whitecaps will be back to their full complement by then, because the Gold Cup will be over. So you would imagine the Whitecaps are going to get through that second leg fairly easily. Now, the big change for the competition this year is the away goals rule has gone. And when the draw was made, I was pretty sure that I had heard at the time that the away goal rule had gone for the two-legged games. But Zach was on the pre-game call for the Vancouver Cavalry game on Tuesday morning, and both Cavalry head coach Tommy Wilden Jr. and Afshin Goatby from Vancouver FC spoke about the importance of away goals in the competition. Both were under the impression that the away goals rule was still in play, only for Canada Soccer to make an announcement on Tuesday afternoon that there was no away goals rule in the quarterfinals and semi-finals this year. The right decision, and I know away goals rules have benefited the Whitecaps last year, this year in different competitions, but for me, the away goals rule is an outdated thing in football. It doesn't need to exist, and it was the right decision. Communication-wise, clearly was a bit of a shambles when you've got two coaches at their press conferences the day before a game, talking as if they think it's still in play. So something somewhere along the lines kind of fell by the wayside, but it was the right decision in the end. Now, one of the other big talking points around the game as well was for those that wanted to watch the game, if you didn't have One Soccer on the app or through One Soccer itself, you weren't able to see the first 20-25 minutes of the Whitecaps game at Valour because the kick-off times overlapped with the game that was on before it. Forge taking on Montreal and beating Montreal 1-0, which on paper was always going to be the better game and had the bigger chance of the cup set. And obviously because it kicks off first, it gets precedence. And this one completely baffles me. It's a 2-game night, and yeah, I get the Valour play in the central time zone, but this happened in the last round as well with the TSS game, where there was the overlap of games. So one of the games, the earlier kickoff is shown on the main channel, and the second game starts on the secondary channel that is only available on the website or the One Soccer app. So if you don't have that, and you watch One Soccer through Telus or you watch One Soccer through Fubo, you can't see the start of the second game. When it's only a 2-game night, there is absolutely no reason that the games need to overlap. Now, I had some folks say, well, you don't want an 8 o'clock kickoff, it's too late to start games. It's not. Look at Champions League, look at games over in the UK. They all have 7:45, 8 o'clock kickoffs. It's a standard kickoff time. And when you look at the crowd, which was just shy of 3,500 anyway, I don't really think it was going to impact anything if they pushed the kickoff back for half an hour so that both games could be shown in full. It just baffles me that Canada Soccer and One Soccer couldn't sit down together to thrash out those kickoff times not overlapping. And if folk were like, well, you don't want late kickoff times in Winnipeg, when TSS played there, the Jets game didn't actually have a face-off until 8:30. So it's not that sports fans in the city aren't used to late starts. That's something that comes from being in the central zone. And like I said, I don't think it would have hit attendance at the game. But what I found particularly annoying, and I find these people just general annoying just all round, and I don't think there's any group more irritating in Canadian soccer circles than the One Soccer CPL fanboys, which in their mind, One Soccer can do no wrong. Now, we're big advocates of One Soccer here. We speak very highly of them. And just to reiterate, I feel what they do for Canadian soccer is second to none. They've stepped up when the other channels wouldn't. They've brought coverage to the game across all levels. They deserve to be applauded. They deserve to be supported. That's why I have the channel. I have it through Telus. Now, some of the fanboys were saying, well, if you don't pay for the full service, you don't get the full service. Through Telus, I have TSN and Sportsnet. I can use a TV provider login to go on to TSN and Sportsnet apps and watch any additional coverage that's not on TSN Plus or Sportsnet Plus, but just a bonus additional game. That should be available for One Soccer. And what's even more annoying is I have it on Telus, I'm supporting a league sponsor in Telus, and I still couldn't watch the game. And it's the Telus Canadian Championship. So, I mean, to me, just no excuse for that at all. Hopefully they can sort that out for going forward. It's not going to come into play for the second leg, but it was just very disappointing all round. Last thing I want to say about the game, as I mentioned, a crowd just shy of 3,500. A bit disappointing, but still a fairly decent crowd for what Valour have been getting at their matches. And we touched on this in the last show. My hope from this game is that you've got a big bulk, or just any part of that crowd that maybe aren't regular Valour supporters, that went to that game, were entertained by the game, were entertained by their hometown team, and think, yeah, I want to get back and watch more Valour games, because they need the fans, they need the support. They're a team that's in a very perilous situation just now. The ownership's been handed to the league. The league are bankrolling them, and they need the support. And hopefully Phil DeSantis has turned things around now, and that we're going to see Valour just move onwards and upwards and push on in the CPL and get some crowds in, because they deserve it. There's some very good players on that team, and they certainly gave the Whitecaps a good run for their money. But that Valour game made it 3 draws in a row for the Whitecaps. One against LAFC, one against Austin, and then that one in the Canadian Championship against Valour. And questions were arising. Has the Whitecaps bubble burst? Have teams now got more game tape on what a Sorensen-style Whitecaps team is? And does that mean that they know how to play against them a bit better? Are they reducing the chances and just the impact that the Whitecaps have had in the early part of the year? Was this just the Whitecaps reverting to the mean? Well, the next 2 games that the Whitecaps have, for me, absolutely massive in the grand scheme of things. RSL on Saturday night down in Utah, and the game against Minnesota United at BC Place on Wednesday evening. With the schedule coming up, with all the players that are going to be away on international duty, with the decimated Whitecaps lineup that we're going to see in a couple of these games coming up, every single point is a prisoner right now. And the key thing for me to take from these 2 games is the Whitecaps had to give themselves some breathing space, some wiggle room at the top of the Western Conference. They needed to have that cushion for any games like the Seattle game, where they're going to be missing 9 players to international duty. More on that in part 3. And if that game doesn't go the Whitecaps' way, which, I mean, if they can get anything from it, right now, if you offered me a draw, I would bite your hand off at a 0-0 against Seattle. But they need to give themselves that little bit of a cushion, that little bit of wiggle room, and they did just that against RSL down in Sandy, Utah on Saturday night. They didn't make it easy for themselves, but it was a 3-2 come from behind victory, the magnitude of which simply cannot be understated. Not only did it end the 3-game run of draws, it gave them some much needed confidence as they get set for next Sunday's CONCACAF Champions Cup final in Mexico City against Cruz Azul. Looking at it from an MLS point of view, it increased Vancouver's lead at the top of the Western Conference after other results today. It put them back atop the race for the Supporters' Shield, and it gave them that breathing space that I was talking about. Even if they don't beat Minnesota on Wednesday, they will still be top of the West, and they will take that into June, into July, when the going is going to get tough, when they're playing on the road, when they have a much reduced roster. This game, these 3 points, was absolutely massive in the grand scheme of things. And obviously, it started off horribly for them. Jesper Sorensen made 4 changes from the team that started that pretty poor performance, we've got to say, last week down in Austin, the 0-0 draw. 7 changes from the team that started against Valour in the Canadian Championship on Tuesday night. The biggest loss, though, of all for the Whitecaps was the fact that yellow card accumulation, and we were expecting this sooner rather than later, but kind of crept up on a few folk because it wasn't mentioned in the game day notes that this was imminent. But Andres Kubis's yellow card last week against Austin saw him miss this game down in RSL, and a bit of a double-edged sword. It's great they got the 3 points without Andres Kubis playing there, but it did show again just how important he is to this team. But it's got him rested now, and even if he starts on Wednesday or comes off the bench on Wednesday, he has got some rest ahead of this cup final, and that can only be a good thing. Of course, what wasn't a good thing was the first 4 minutes of this one. The Whitecaps got off to the worst possible start, found themselves 2 goals down, only 4 minutes in. I mean, RSL took the game to the Caps from the off, and with just 50 seconds on the clock, the home side had the lead. Diego Luna threaded the ball through to Xavier Gozo, and the young homegrown, who graduated from high school this week, the 18-year-old, left Bjorn Inge Utvik in his wake as he headed towards goal. Utvik recovered, but then Gozo put the ball through his legs, kind of, I think, blindsided Yohei Takaoka a little bit, and finished Yohei's near post, and it was 1-0 to RSL, and you're like, oh, here we go again. But worse was to quickly come for the Whitecaps, because RSL kept the pressure on, and the man of the moment, Diego Luna, made it 8 goals in 8 games and doubled their advantage 3 minutes later. Dominic Markzuk had fired a shot in. Takaoka was only able to parry it away right in front of him, and it fell to Luna. It was in the perfect spot, about 7 yards from goal, tucked it away past Takaoka, and the RSL crowd were in raptures. And this goal stemmed really from a giveaway from Sebastian Berhalter, probably the only foot he put wrong the whole night. He tried a little cheeky back heel and it didn't quite come off. It was pounced upon by RSL, and then they just took it towards the goal and made it 2-0. And at that point, in the altitude, with the way that the team's been playing, it felt like a massive mountain to climb. But as we keep talking about, this is not your Whitecaps of old. We saw it against LAFC. Even with this, and the advantage with this, it was only 4 minutes in, you thought, they can come back and get at least a point from this. Didn't doubt it, even at 2-0. Even with the way the game went for the next kind of 15 minutes, still felt comfortable that they would get back into it if they got the next goal. The next goal in this one was absolutely huge. And as it turned out, it was 2 goals in the space of a 5-minute spell for the Whitecaps, and we're back on level terms. And it's been a bit of an Achilles heel for RSL all season. Set pieces, and it was their undoing again. First goal game, 20th minute. Sebastian Berhalter, another perfect pinpoint delivery from the corner, right onto the head of Brian White. Rose unchallenged, easily headed past Cabral in the RSL goal, and the Whitecaps had that crucial next goal, reduced the deficit, straight on the offensive from the kickoff, forced another corner. This time Berhalter whipped in another one of his pinpoint crosses onto Sam Arakugbe this time. Now his header hit the outstretched arm of Willie Agada. Whitecaps players right away appealed for the penalty. Referee didn't give it. And then as soon as you saw the replays, you're like, well, yeah, it's going to be video review. It's going to get given. That is indeed what happened. And then up stepped Brian White, a man who hasn't scored a penalty for the Whitecaps in MLS play. He scored it in penalty shootouts. He scored it in Leagues Cup. He should have scored one against Austin a couple of weeks ago, but unselfishly handed it over to Daniel Rios to try and get him a confidence-boosting goal, which didn't quite work out. This time, though, White stepped up, and it was a short run-up, and I hate them. I was saying to my wife, I don't like when it's short run-ups at all. Didn't feel overly confident, but solely because we're not used to seeing Brian taking penalties. Coolly, easily, slotted it past Cabral though, and we were all tied up at 2 apiece, 25 minutes in. And even though RSL have dangerous players, I thought the only team that was going to go on and win it by this point was the Whitecaps, and they had to wait a long time to get the winning goal. They should have at least had a third, a fourth, and put the game to bed by that point. Brian White had a couple of opportunities. First one in the 63rd minute. White played in by Pedro Vite through ball. Cabral quickly off his line with the save. The rebound falls to Nelson and he blasts over where he really should have done better there. 2 minutes later though, Nelson goes on a mazy run, as he did for the opening goal against RSL a couple of weeks ago here at BC Place. Takes the ball into the box, plays it to his outside to Ali Ahmed. Ahmed sends a fantastic through ball, threads it through perfectly for Brian White. He's right in front of goal, wide open, but the ball's slightly behind him, so it forces him to take a touch to get it on the foot he wants. That touch was the costly thing. It allowed Cabral to regroup, comes up with a big save again, and White denied 2 goals in a 2-minute spell by the keeper. From the resulting corner though, White heads it home beautifully. Referee blew right away for a foul, and I've watched this back a couple of times now. I still do not know what that foul was called for. The referee was very confident that it was a foul because he just immediately let the play continue without VAR reviewing it, but he had blown the whistle before White had connected with it, so I don't really think they could have looked at it, because the RSL players would say, well, we stopped because you blew the whistle. But you're starting to think, oh, maybe this isn't going to be the Whitecaps night, maybe they're not going to get the breakthrough goal, but they did. 90th minute, and it just came so easily. Pedro Vite gets the ball, and RSL just let him walk it forward, basically. Little touched his outside to Emmanuel Sabi. Sabi gives it back to him. Vite, little touch to his left, makes room for the shot, and curls an absolute beauty. Cast past Cabral into the far corner. Celebrates as cool as you like as well. It's 3-2 Whitecaps, and the comeback is complete. And yeah, what an absolutely fantastic display by the team. The fighting spirit, the belief. And Brian White, after that second goal had gone in for RSL, gathered all the players, because Brian was wearing the captain's armband for this one, gathered the players around on the pitch, had a chat with them, said, look, it's early, we can still do this, we just need to get back to doing what we do. They did exactly that. And I don't like using the word statement win, but this does feel like a win that come the end of the season, we will look back on as being a huge, important win for the Whitecaps because of the grand scheme of things. It's a victory, as we mentioned, that increased the lead at the top of the West, and they've got that breathing space now. They've got this confidence. They've got the swagger back as well. They've got the experience of playing in the altitude in this game. So all in all, this is just an absolutely fantastic night at the office for the Whitecaps. And you look at the stats from the game, and the Whitecaps had the better of the possession. The shot count was pretty even. Both teams had 6 shots on goal as well, but it was just the clinicalness in front of goal. And RSL have struggled this year. Like, Luna is on 8 goals. No other player's got more than 1. And it feels like as soon as Vancouver got back into this, their heads went down a little bit, and then Vancouver just took over. This is a message to the rest of the league that no matter if you go 1-2 goals up against the Caps, on the road, at home, whatever, they've got enough belief and enough skill to get back in matches. Now, they're not going to do it every single time, and Jesper Sorensen acknowledged that after the game. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Tonight it did, and you take that every single time that it does. It's kept the Whitecaps road record intact as well, unbeaten now on the road this year, and after Columbus lost today, they're the only team with an unbeaten record on the road in MLS for the season. Some other key stats after the win tonight: the Caps now extend what is already a club record MLS era unbeaten run. 14 matches now unbeaten across all competitions, unbeaten in MLS play alone at 9 matches. The record from them was back in 2021 when they had a 10-match unbeaten streak. Can they match that on Wednesday against Minnesota? Fingers crossed for that. Brian White's brace tonight were his 14th and 15th goals across all competitions, his 10th in MLS. His 9th as well, but 10 goals now in MLS this season. And he's sitting second in the Golden Boot race, 3 behind Ty Baribo, the Philadelphia Union striker. And Pedro Vite now has 5 goals on the year across all competitions, 11 goal contributions, 4 goals, 4 assists in MLS play, and just showing how valuable he is to this team. And of course, there's a lot of questions about Pedro Vite's future. Will we address some of those when we speak to Axel Schuster in the next part? So you want to stay tuned to the end of our interview with Axel to find out what he has to say about Pedro Vite's contract situation. And it was a pretty good weekend, results-wise, for the Whitecaps. Their win takes them to 31 points now from their 14 games played, 2.21 points per game average. They are now 1 point ahead in the Supporters' Shield race, leapfrogging Philadelphia Union. They've got a 4-point gap over San Diego, who's sitting second in the MLS West. Minnesota, third on 26. LAFC, fourth on 23. Then you've got Seattle on 23. Portland on 23. Colorado on 22. And San Jose and Austin on 19 each. They are the teams above the playoff line. Houston, Dallas, RSL, Kansas, St. Louis and LA Galaxy all sit below the playoff line. And, I mean, this was a fantastic match day 15 across MLS. Catch up with the highlights of the games. Go onto YouTube, watch the highlights. Some tremendous matches. Seattle needed a late winner to get the better of Dallas. A 0-0 draw there would have been even better for the Whitecaps in the grand scheme of things. Likewise, San Diego got a late winner against the LA Galaxy, and a 1-0 draw there would have been fantastic for the Whitecaps as well. Galaxy, though, just can't buy a break. 95th minute winner from Chucky Lozano, and you just saw the Galaxy players just sink to their knees when that one went in, still looking for their first win of the season. Portland went down to a 1-0 defeat at Orlando. That was a good result for the Caps. LAFC, they came from behind to salvage a 2-2 draw with Montreal. Montreal were 2-0 up in that one. If they'd managed to hold on, that would have been good. But yeah, drop points for LAFC. Also very, very good. Minnesota and Austin played out a 1-0 draw. Michael Boxall had given Minnesota the lead in that one before they were pegged back. Colorado, after a lengthy weather delay, came away with a 1-0 win over St. Louis. Kansas City was a 3-0 draw with New England, and it was also a 3-0 draw between the Quakes and the Dynamo. Go check out these highlights. Some fantastic stuff. Really feels the league's starting to pick up now. Teams are hitting their groove, and the Whitecaps are still leading the way. And next up is Minnesota United on Wednesday. Now, they've already gone to Minnesota with a heavily rotated squad, came away with a big victory. Minnesota are certainly going to be out for revenge after that. They are playing some of the best football right now in the MLS West. Those 2 points dropped at home today. A bit of a surprise against an Austin team that have been struggling. And Minnesota are going to be very much fired up for this game, partly because they know they can close the gap on the Whitecaps at the top, partly because they'll know that the Whitecaps are probably going to put a rotated lineup out on Wednesday. They also want some revenge for what the Caps went and did in their home field, and you've also got the rather unsavoury aspect as well, where Joseph Rosales, the Honduran for Minnesota United, received a 3-game ban for discriminatory language aimed towards Whitecaps winger Emmanuel Sabe. So that's going to add a bit of unsavoury spice to this after that slur, which Rosales still denies using, but accepted his punishment. He's been on the bench since he's returned, and I do wonder whether they'll even have him make this trip. To me, it would not be sensible if he did, but we'll see how that plays out. The Whitecaps certainly will have some rotation. I mean, we know Sebastian Berhalter will get the start because unfortunately he won't be at the Cup final playing on Sunday. I do think we'll see a mix though, because Jesper Sorensen knows it's an important game in terms of getting league points on the board, and he also wants to kind of keep his players fresh. So you might see a little bit of rotation from the starters, and then some of the more regulars, the guys that's going to play on Sunday, coming off the bench, playing in the second half. Because it's been interesting. Jesper Sorensen this week has spoken to media about the way that he looks at games. It's not necessarily to have the strongest starting 11 out there. he likes to look at it as having the strongest finishing 11. And although that might seem a little bit of a strange philosophy, it certainly seems to be working. He feels he knows what his best 11 is, probably maybe bar one. And that's interesting because obviously Ryan Gauld still has to get back. Sounding a little bit more promising though about Ryan. Jesper Sorensen said this week that he could be back in a couple of weeks' time. There is a little bit of progression there. He's still doing work in the gym at training, and when he comes back, it will be interesting to see what Jesper feels is his strongest 11. For me, you've definitely got questions in the fullback positions, and you've got questions in the wing positions as well. But everything else is pretty much, I think, cemented right now, and everything right now is also working out pretty good. It's a great time to be a Whitecaps fan. Top of the West, top of the Supporters' Shield, an Intercontinental Cup final to look forward to. Players deserve a lot of credit. Jesper Sorensen deserves a lot of credit, and so does Whitecaps Sporting Director and CEO Axel Schuster. So I got a chance to sit down with Axel this week just to chat about what this cup run and start of the season has meant to the club, both on and off the pitch, and a few other things as well. And we'll be back with that after this episode's song from our album of the month.
Hey, I am Axel Schuster, and I'm listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Kicking off this part, it's this episode song from our album of the month. The album in question is 1994's debut release from Glasgow band Baby Chaos, and that was the second track on the album, Saliva. And Baby Chaos will round off being album of the month in the next episode, where we'll bring you one, maybe two more songs from them to round the month off. But we're going to get back to the football chat now and our feature interview for the episode as I sit down with Whitecaps CEO and Sporting Director Axel Schuster, a man that deserves a lot of credit for the way that he has built this Whitecaps team, not just this off-season, but the last couple of years at the helm of the club, appointing Jesper Sorensen into the role. And we said at the time, getting rid of Vanni Sartini, it was a gutsy, ballsy move by Axel. It's one that he knew if there wasn't success from the new coach, folk would be like, well, why did you get rid of the coach that had reached the playoffs and won the Canadian Championship for the last 3 years? The appointment had to be the right one. Nobody knows when any manager is appointed if it's going to be the right one, if things are going to work out. But these first few months under Jesper Sorensen have been absolutely fantastic. A joy to watch the team, a joy to cover and talk about the team, and it's created a genuine buzz in the city for the Whitecaps again, and it's been great to see. And Jesper deserves a lot of praise, the players deserve a lot of praise, but Axel Schuster also deserves a lot of praise for finding the man that backed the vision of what he was looking for in a manager. He wanted a manager that wouldn't try and rebuild everything. Not a manager that was just going to play in a style that didn't suit the players that were already there. And he found that man in Jesper Sorensen. They've reaped the rewards. The fruit has been ripe these first few months. Top of MLS West, leading the Supporters' Shield for a large chunk of the season, and of course, taking the club to their first Intercontinental final next weekend down in Mexico City against Cruz Azul. So I want to have a chat with Axel just about what this cup run means to the Whitecaps in all aspects, both on and off the pitch, and a few other things as well. So go stick the kettle on, grab your biscuit of choice, sit back and enjoy our chat with Axel S. So Axel, thank you for joining us once again on the show in what has been a very exciting and very action-packed year for the Whitecaps so far.
Yeah, I would say, if you live in it and you have to play every few days a game and you have to travel a lot, you sometimes don't even have time to enjoy it or to get too excited. But obviously, yes, in a calm moment, if you shortly think about where we are at, and especially where we are at compared to the moment in December when we had several things to announce, a coach change coming, an ownership change coming. I would say we for a moment we're allowed to take a breath and also to enjoy the momentum. But I think we also always have to keep in mind what got us here, and that's the hard work and to stay humbled and to not think to not get too high in the highs and not to get too low in the lows. And we have to continue to do this because the job is by far not done. In all competitions, we still have to fight. And so we have to prepare ourselves for new challenges that are ahead of us. And there are lots of challenges ahead of us.
Yeah, we'll get into a few of those. I'm saying this half jokingly, but also kind of half meaning it. I mean, are you just a genius for finding Jesper Sorensen and putting him in charge of the team?
I wouldn't call myself a genius. I also long enough in this business to know that you also always need a little bit of luck that things play out this way. I would say that myself and the group that I trusted and that I was involving in the whole process, that we had certain characteristics that were non-negotiable for us in a new coach. And we were very sure that Jesper was hitting all these boxes. And I think that's the basis for all of the success. That he's somebody who makes players better, is a player developer, and player developing is not only for young players, also for older players. And the other thing that he has this special skill to look at the team, look at the available players, and to put a style and a formation onto the pitch that makes the team right away competing for wins. And those two things were non-negotiable for us. And I think both of that, he has proven that he has a proven record in his past. And both that are still the basis for our success. Then that a few other things have been that good, you never know. That's also a little bit of luck and a little bit of maybe that everything came together in the right way and that we have been the right organization for him and that the setup that we have was the perfect for him. But I don't want to say that I have been able to foresee all of this.
Yeah. The main bulk of what I want to talk to you about today is just what this cup run means to the club in a whole variety of things. So, I mean, first off, financially. So we know last year or 2023, when it was announced that the Champions League was going to become Champions Cup, it was announced that whoever won it in 2024 got $5 million US. So I would assume it's at least that this year round as well. So, I mean, win or lose, has this run been a huge boost financially to the coffers of the club?
If we win it, yes. If we finish as the runner-up, I don't think it has really a big financial impact.
Right.
And that includes already the game against Miami. It's a problem of all competitions in North America and in the CONCACAF region, is that travel eats so much of revenue. We have now the fourth opponent where the flight time is 6 hours plus, and charter planes are not cheap. And charter planes become more expensive the longer they have to fly. So I would say what is a good thing that I like a lot, and that means a lot to our players, because we have built our roster like that, is that the players, they financially benefit because half of all this prize money that you have just mentioned is going to the players. So,
oh, wow.
Yes. So, but the biggest difference maker in all this prize money scandal is still winning the final or not winning the final. So there's a huge amount coming if you win the final. But again, it's at least not a loss. We have won 3 Canadian championships in a row, and in each year we have lost money in the competition. If you look at all the costs of the competition and all the revenue of the competition, and it was the same in the CONCACAF Champions Cup for the last 2 years. So at least it's not a loss. And I don't want to only look at it from the financial side, because obviously it was great marketing and is great marketing for the club. The games against Miami and the home game against Miami, I think, will also help us in the future. If we look at awareness about the club, if you look at excitement around the club, and 53,000 people who have seen us playing this way against Miami, there's also a good chance that some of them come back. So we will have some future benefits from it. But on the pure financial side, it's very difficult with competitions in North America or in the CONCACAF region.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to mention what you just said there as well. It's like, hopefully this has led to more uptick in ticket sales, more fans coming in. We've seen it the last couple of games. I'm seeing Whitecaps hats and kits and stuff all around the city. Our numbers for the podcast on the website have increased. So, I mean, it's got that knock-on effect. Do you see, from what you've seen so far, that it is translating into more fans coming, more ticket sales, more season ticket sales?
You know what? It's hard to say from where it really comes, because our run in MLS is obviously also very good. So how much the Champions Cup run plays into it? I would say winning and having a team that excites people is always helping. Our numbers obviously last year have been already very strong, and I think a lot of people in the last year have always told us that it's only related to the one home match against Miami. I think we can prove them wrong now, and we can keep up with these numbers. But I think there is always more to do. It's our job to never think we have reached something, more to think about the next step. And there is also more we have to do to make the game and everything around the game a very good entertainment for people, an event you want to go to. We're working with the stadium on that. The constructions right now are in a way helpful, but with the future setup and our new contract coming up, I think there's a lot we can do. But our numbers are growing over many years now. And I think that's a good thing, because we always want to do the next step on the pitch and off the pitch. And our numbers are growing, and we build a bigger foundation. And it's obviously also something that is important in the whole sales process of the club. When I always say we want to make this club the most attractive bride, to have a proof that there's way more interaction with supporters, fans. There are more clicks on our sites. There is more seasonal tickets. We have more match day tickets. We have more sales on merch and all of this. It shows consistent growth, and we are within the top 5 clubs in growth in MLS, and it is needed, and we have to continue this. But that's probably very positive for the club, and it's also what we aim for. And next year we want to grow again, and regardless of in what competitions we play, and regardless of results, we want to grow, because it is important that we make that a little bit independent from results. Because if your growth and your success is only depending on results, in a way balanced league where the champion cannot win any game until now in the next season, you also have to make you a little bit independent from pure results.
No, that's fair. And I think, I mean, I'm always bad for this. I look too far ahead. But you look at the game against Cruz Azul, and winning that, you're in the Intercontinental Championship in December against other Champions League winners. The Club World Cup comes from that in 2029. So whether we get to that stage or not, that would obviously put the club on a world map. Do you feel this run has kind of put the club a little bit more on the world map? Are you getting more attention from players? Are they getting in touch, seeing how well the team's doing in MLS, in the Champions Cup, potential ownership as well? Has that drummed up more interest?
Yes. First of all, yes. The answer is yes. There is, you can see more requests from international, more articles on international web pages. Obviously, also winning against Miami in 2 legs, and with this kind of performance and results has led to a lot of articles worldwide. Mm-hmm. Going now in the Champions Cup final, it's in a lot of parts of this world, this is the biggest game that a club can play. So I don't think that we look that far ahead and think about already what that would mean for December or for 2029, I think, when the next Club World Cup. I think we do very well in only focusing on the next game. I think you remember that in my one press conference when I said we want to go deeper into the playoffs, and what can we do for that is to focus on the next game and win it, and that will get us closer to a better result in the league. I think that's a very successful approach so far, to just focus on the next game and to see what this next game means for us and what players are available and what's the constellation of it. But that if you play successful, that it also means something later in the year. It's obvious. We know this with playoffs. We know this since we play in the Champions Cup and the Canadian Championship, that if you're successful, there might be new games coming, and then you have to deal with them later. But yes, it's in general, everything is positive around the club. Everything generates more attraction, more followership, more questions, more requests. And at the same time, we have to be very careful that doesn't distract us from our general approach, and from also the focus on the next game, because we had a successful formula. And you can see in the last games that opponents play differently against us, and that the challenges are not becoming easier, and that it is also now a different situation, that you come as the team that everyone wants to beat, or everyone is already okay with a 1 point against. So we have to use all our energy on always the next game, and we can deal with the nice problems to have that we have more games at the end of the season later.
No, it's a good way of looking at it. Now, I mean, this podcast is going to come out. It won't be the next game, the Cruz Azul game, because we've got the Minnesota game before it. But it's talking about the final now and Cruz Azul. Just got a couple of questions for you around the preparation for it. I mean, the first one is, playing that game midweek against Minnesota. I mean, I was sure that game was going to get called off, and I understand a lot of the thinking into it. You want to keep the players sharp, the lack of available dates, maybe for rescheduling it down the line. But I mean, how did that decision come that you felt, we need to play that game, a tough game, possibly a top 2 battle, 4 days before the cup final?
if you have success, you have to deal with more games. And so far we have done that way well. I can tell you that there is it's a different story around that we haven't won a game on a weekend yet if we had no midweek game before. So all the games that we had played with a full week of preparation, we haven't won yet. We have not lost a lot. Obviously, we haven't lost any games since a long time, where we had a lot of ties. And we have played in. We had a very, very important game in the same stadium in Mexico City versus Pumas, where we won. And it was in the middle of the week with all the travel, and we won the game before and after in MLS. So I think we have to believe in our strengths. Wednesday, Sunday is actually even a day more than Wednesday, Saturday, what we have played so far. We have now Tuesday, Saturday. What is a day longer? Saturday, Wednesday is 4 days, and then we have another 4 days. Also, to explain the listeners here, a 4-day break is not that bad. If you wouldn't play a game, you would train very, very hard on that day. You would actually, if you have a full week of time, that's a day. The day number 3 and 4 are very intense days for the team, because you also need to stay in shape and to stay game ready. You also need to push yourself in training. So I would say it's now more the question, do we need mentally time to prepare for this game? And I think there we could say that the season so far has told us a different story, that staying in the mood and playing in the next game and not thinking about the second game already and only being focused on the next game that comes is maybe something that works better for us. So we see it as a positive that we have a midweek game before. We had, honestly, as you know, before our very, very important away game in Miami, we played in Minnesota and had a game against Minnesota as well. And that actually, after that, we made it through the final. So maybe that's our karma or our special opponent that we need before huge successes.
Yeah, mate, I hadn't even clicked really, but yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, I know we've been down there, we've played in the stadium against Pumas, you've experienced the altitude, everything that goes with that. For that game, you flew down the day before. This one, I know you're going down a bit earlier, some of which will be dictated to, I guess, by media, CONCACAF needs and things like that. But what did you learn for getting the players ready from that trip? Because in that Pumas game, the first 15, 20 minutes, it did seem to take a bit of time for the team to settle. There was overhit passes, just getting used to the conditions, and obviously playing in altitude's tough. So, I mean, what have you learned preparation-wise from that game to take into the final now?
Look, the setup to the Pumas game was actually not ideal and not planned from us this way. Because we landed less than 24 hours before the kickoff, way less than 24 hours before the kickoff, because we landed around midnight. So the problem was that our pilot, who was supposed to fly us to Mexico City, got sick on the night before. And for Mexico City, because of the altitude, you need a certain license. So there was no pilot in Vancouver who could fly the plane to Mexico City straight. So we had to land in Denver to pick up another pilot there. What took us another 3 hours in Denver until the pilot was really in the plane and we got started. So for that reason, our trip was extended and took way longer. Then in Mexico City, you're not allowed to land in the international airport. You have to land outside of the city if you come with a charter plane. We had to bus into the city. So we had our dinner way after midnight, and our kickoff was 19 hours away, or 18 hours away. So what we have learned is that we better have 2 pilots available for this flight. No, we have to go a day earlier anyway. And I think it's actually a good thing. The players also said it would be better to train there once to get used to the thin air. The balls are flying further because of the thin air. So it's not so much that the altitude is concerning us. It's a little bit more of getting adjusted to the length of passes or long balls or corner kicks and all of this. They also play with a different ball, so it's all the things you would like to try out once. And this time we have the chance. We even have to do it because it's a mandatory, and we only see that also as a positive thing. So we will be there with more preparation. So hopefully the first 50 minutes look better. But more important is that the 90th plus third minute still looks as good as the last time.
Yes. I mean, hopefully it's not as nerve-wracking and going down to the wire. I'm not sure my heart can stand too many more of these last-minute things. I mean, last year's final, Columbus, food poisoning, unfortunate incident right before the game that obviously people draw their own conclusions for that. What are you doing to ensure, food-wise and food poisoning-wise, that isn't happening? Are you bringing your own chef down, or are you working closely with the hotel just to make sure that everything's okay?
Yeah, I don't want to share too many information, so we don't want to give our
I guess that's true,
insights in what we are doing. But I can tell that we actually spoke with Columbus, and we really try to understand what happened there and how to avoid such an incident. I think we are well prepared for that. We have everything in place that is needed. We have been already in Mexico twice, one against two Mexican teams, and I think all our measures and everything that we have in place has worked well at that time. So we trust in it a third time, and all good things are three, and that's at least what we say in Germany. And so let's make it happen on the 1st of June.
Cool. Two last things to ask you. So with success comes other things, good and bad. One of them is you're going to get more players called up for international duty. And boy, have we got some players called up for international duty for that game against Seattle. And I mean, is there concerns for this summer? There's already a big stretch on the road. You're going to be missing players for the international window and then for the Gold Cup as well. Like, is there plans in place to get replacements in? Do you think you'll lean heavily into WFC2 call-ups? Is there a chance of maybe adding free agents, but sooner rather than later?
Look, first of all, our approach is not to think about or discuss it too much in a negative way, and to remind ourselves about how strength our depth is. And we have spoken about that many times, that we are a club who wants to go this way, who is not relying on 10, 11 starters, and then the rest is supplemental roster players. We have played a game in Minnesota, if we remind ourselves, and I think that a lot of people, when they saw our lineup, thought like, okay, they skipped this one because Miami is so important, and they focus on getting it to the final. And we picked up all 3 points in Minnesota, who is right now the second best team in the Western Conference. And I think that we have a lot of depth. It's important that we have everyone available who is not getting called up. The Seattle game will be a special game, but you cannot prepare for such a game. And it's a good thing for the guys that they get called up and that they get this learning experience, and that will make them better players with having this experience and dealing with these challenges, playing for their country and having international games. The Seattle game is a game that we have just to take as it is. And it doesn't mean that we cannot get a result. I think against Chicago, we were very close to get a result, and we had a similar situation. And then for every game after that, I think we have to rely on the group that we have now. We don't have then this full of a schedule. We have always a week time. We have to make sure that everyone is healthy. We shouldn't pick up more injuries. That would actually be a concern. But if everyone is available who doesn't get called up, I think we have a group that can compete, a group that can pick up points, and we have some challenging games. So we have to play in Columbus, what is probably one of the best teams in the East. And I think we have to take it as it is and fight there for points. And then it's a good learning experience for maybe some other players from the depth. And then we are maybe even better prepared after all of this for the last third of the season and the playoff run that is coming then, because we will need all those players later in the season again. And I think nothing is wrong with having more players who are ready, and to get them ready, they also have to play minutes. So again, we look at the positives. We look at the positives of the performances that those guys have shown in the past, especially, for example, in a game like in Minnesota, that we have a lot of depth, and that will help those players only to get better. And then at the end, we're continuing to work on having a little bit of a buffer in case we need it. Not saying that we need it, but in case we need it. And right now we have a good buffer in points, and so I'm not concerned about it. I'm not worried about it. I think we will go with game to game and prepare for each game. And I think that there will be no game that you will hear me saying before, look, today we have to accept that we might lose. No, we want to win every game, and it doesn't matter who is on the pitch at the end.
So I'm taking it from that as well. There's not a free agent coming any time before the summer, at least. So, okay. Right.
Again, we sometimes, and I recommend everyone to do this. I will not do this exercise here because, of course, I have a little bit more insights and knowledge. But look at our roster, look at our call-ups, and strike them through, and build a best 11 with the players that will remain in Vancouver.
Oh, I have done that.
and it's not a bad team at all, really.
No.
It is not a bad team at all. What I say again, we shouldn't pick up too many more injuries. That wouldn't be helpful because, of course, then our depth is gone, and our depth will be MLS Next Pro players. And that's our approach. We always want to be a team that has close connections and short passes or short connections to the first team for young players, and we want to rely on them. We also want to show them that they have a real chance. But then, if we have to go way deeper in our roster, then it would be a concern. But as of now, I don't see any reason to pick somebody up who hasn't played with any team for many, many weeks and months, and believe that this guy then would be a better fit than one of our depth players.
That's fair. So last thing quickly, the other thing that comes with success is there's eyes on your players. And the one player that's been mentioned out there, Pedro Vite, just since I've got you on, what's the latest with his contract? I believe there is an offer to him. I mean, are the club close to re-signing him, or is it a kind of wait and see approach right now?
Yeah, it's another thing that I cannot and don't want to share too many details right now.
Okay.
But we will share as soon as there is something to share. I always can only repeat what I said before. Ecuador is, I would say, 90% safe qualifying for the World Cup next year. Pedro Vite gets called up from his national team for every window now and plays in the team and starts for his team. And he got there with the performances in MLS in the team of the Vancouver Whitecaps and the way we play and use him this year. So there is obviously also a lot of risk on his side to change now and to go to a new adventure, to a club that then has to be a club that is considered as a club higher up the ladder than us, because you might not start there, you might lose your spot, it might need transition time, settling in time there, and that's not great for your World Cup ambitions. So there is a very good reason on his side as well to rely on stability for a moment. Obviously, having a player like him who has grown that much, who is now on the radar of a lot of clubs and who receives also offers from other clubs, makes the basis for the negotiations not easier. But let's see that as a positive, that our negotiations with him obviously are then also a little bit more challenging if there is more interest in the player. But that's a natural thing. If no one wants your player, then your negotiations are easy. But you also know that no one wants your player. I prefer that others want our players and think our players are all great and they're ready for the next step, and we find a solution to keep them. But it's work to be done still, and it still will take. Yeah, I don't know how long. I don't think too long, but it will still take some time, and we hope that we find a solution that is then good for him and good for us. But there are also never guarantees, of course. But I remain on, or I want to continue to refer to what I said just before, that there are also a lot of good reasons to stay in Vancouver for him.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds very positive. Thank you for your time today, Axel. I know it's been a crazy day for you. You're just about to fly off to Salt Lake. Enjoy it. We'll see you next week, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Great stuff, as always, from Whitecaps Sporting Director and CEO Axel Schuster. And we'll just unpack a couple of little things that Axel mentioned in our chat there. First of all, I think what we ended with there, sounding positive and hopeful that Pedro Vite is going to re-sign. I hadn't thought about it the way that Axel spelled it out there, but he's in a team just now that plays to his strengths, and because of that, you're seeing him have his best ever season here in Vancouver. So it would be a gamble ahead of a World Cup to make that move, maybe go to a team where you're maybe not going to be a regular starter, or they might have a different kind of playing style that maybe doesn't fully suit what you are going to bring to the table, and you've got to kind of integrate and change your game. The flip side of that, of course, is sometimes for players, especially international players, you've got to strike when the iron's hot. You've got to get that big move to, say, a big European club or a big South American club, because they might not come knocking a second time around. So definitely a lot for Pedro Vite and his agent to think about, but sounding positive at least there from Axel as we ended the chat there. And the Whitecaps run just now, not just in the Champions Cup, but basically how they've started the MLS season, it has got more eyes on them from every aspect. Local fans, local media, national media, international media, and players are going to be attracting attention. There's probably going to be some other players that clubs are going to come in for sooner rather than later if their form stays the way they are. But also, and I know I didn't fully get an answer from Axel there, but we also were very tight for time because Axel did that interview from the airport while I was waiting to fly down to Salt Lake City for the Whitecaps game on Saturday. So I didn't want to push him too much on the one topic or one question when I had a few other things to get through. But you have to feel that there's players that maybe they had reached out to before that were like, well, we're not so sure, and now they've seen how the Whitecaps are doing and they're more interested in coming to Vancouver. Also, if, and I know it's still a big if and you don't want to tempt fate, but if they beat Cruz Azul next weekend, guaranteed to be in a FIFA Intercontinental Championship in December, guaranteed to be in a FIFA Club World Cup in 4 years' time. For some players, that's going to be a big lure. Also, with the World Cup being here next year, having a chance to be and get used to the cities and acclimatise to stadiums and stuff as well might be a lure for some international players. That might just be me having wishful thinking, and it may not come to that. But you also, as I asked Jesper Sorensen about this at training on Friday, and we hear that in the next part when we're talking about international absences. But you don't want to just add a player for the sake of it, and then when everyone's back, everyone's fit and healthy, you've got unhappy players because they're not getting playing time. So it's a fine balancing act, and I think what Axel's done with recruiting, and Quinn Thompson as well, deserves a lot of plaudits there, as does Vanni Sartini for building the core base to this and taking the group to the heights that he did, and then Jesper's come in and elevated them and taken them to different levels, which, as Axel said there, that's what he was looking for a new coach to come in and do. And Jesper Sorensen has definitely done that. We'll talk in the next part about the players away on international duty and what that's going to mean in June and July. But the other thing I want to talk about that Axel mentioned there is what this means to the club financially. Because we know last year the winner of the CONCACAF Champions Cup was guaranteed $5 million American, but it could be more than that in terms of distribution, prize money, sponsorship, all the things that come with that. So you'd imagine it's at least the same in 2025. That was a tenfold increase in what the winner of the Champions League got in 2023. So a big increase. It was 500,000 back in 2023, 2022, and the runner-up got 300,000. Does that mean they get 3 million? I, again, couldn't really push too much on that. I'm not sure Axel would have been too keen to say. And again, looking ahead, if the Whitecaps were to win it and they were then to qualify for the 2029 Club World Cup, looking at what clubs are going to get for taking part in this year's one, CONCACAF clubs, just for qualifying, get $9.55 million US. So you don't even have to win a match at the tournament and you're guaranteed basically $10 million. In your group stages, you get $2 million American dollars per win, $1 million for a draw. If you get through the group stage, then there's another 7.5 million up for grabs, and the overall winner of the tournament gets 40 million US dollars. Now, you're talking here about financial amounts that can really change the direction of where clubs go, especially in Major League Soccer. But it's also interesting to hear him talk about the expense that you have when you're in these intercontinental competitions, because this is the third trip to Mexico. They've had a trip to Miami. They've had a trip to Costa Rica. They're not cheap. And it's good to hear that the prize money will at least mean that they're not making a loss from these trips. But I know I didn't. I'm sure many of you listening to this didn't as well. Didn't fully appreciate just what those costs really are to the club. The longer you go, the more games you've got, the more expense you've got. So, yeah, again, a fine balancing act in that. I love, though, what he revealed there, that because of the players' contracts, half of the money that the club get go to the players for this cup run, and that's fantastic to hear. It's something that I think would attract players to hear. Maybe that is commonplace throughout the league and MLS, PA contracts. I don't know, but it's really nice to hear that the players will be fully rewarded for their efforts, because they all deserve it. To a man, they have put in hell of amazing performances to the year to date, especially in the Champions Cup. So good luck to them moving forward as well. And talked there as well, we all know what happened to Columbus last year in the final, about a food poisoning the day before the game. To St. Ricketts was talking at training on Thursday that he's never been to Mexico and not got sick. Even accidentally swallowing a little bit of water in the shower or while you're cleaning your teeth can lead to tummy troubles. So that's something for the players to certainly be careful for, myself to be careful for, and any fans listening to this that's going down, be very careful with your water intake when you're down there. Stick to the bottled water and boiled water even. Just be careful, because we know what happened to Columbus. I fully expected that the Whitecaps would have reached out to them last year to kind of see what happened. And you can't blame Axel for being a little bit cagey and not wanting to talk too much about what their plans are. But it is good that they're kind of mandated to have to get down early for that, and the players wanted it as well. So they're going to be flying down on Friday. They'll have Friday night and all of Saturday to kind of acclimatise themselves to the altitude, get a good proper training session on the pitch as well in those conditions, and hopefully from the first kick, from the first whistle, we'll see a Whitecaps team ready to go. And we'll preview the game in the next podcast, so hope to bring that out Thursday or Friday. And exciting times. It's just crazy to think that in a week's time the Whitecaps are in an international cup final, and it's one that could lead to very good glory and riches moving forward. So thank you for Axel giving up his time there. Very much appreciated it. So we're going to turn our attention now to something that's been a big talking point this week, especially from me and my tweets that I've put out there, and that is the international call-ups that the Whitecaps have got coming up in June and into July. It's one of those double-edged swords. You're successful, you play well, international teams then want to have you playing for the national team. They get call-ups. The MLS schedule, as we all know, is just awful. They play through international dates, and the Whitecaps are certainly going to be decimated when it comes to that date on June 8th, the Cascadia Derby clash at BC Place against Seattle. We'll be chatting about that. We'll look at the call-ups. We'll hear from some of the call-ups as well, and also a little bit from Canadian men's head coach Jesse Marsh. And we'll be back with all of that after this episode's Britpop song.
Hi, I'm Ali Ahmed. You're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
I'm gonna take myself a hole and get my head inside. Gonna keep my eyes closed, feel my heart dripping by. Life can be so ordinary. I did try to make mine good, but I've made so many mistakes. Down in my youth, down in my youth, down in my youth, down in my youth. Welcome to my house. We'll play for a while. Can't you see there's a ghost by my side? I'm gonna dig myself a hole and get my head inside.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part, it's our Britpop song for this episode. Every week this year, towards the end of last year, we're playing a song from the Britpop era, ideally one that was released 30 years ago this week, just to honour the 30th anniversary of one of my favourite musical genres and a big part of my youth and musical style growing up as well. This week, featuring for the first time, is a London band called Drugstore. Much like Salad, they are a Britpop band from the UK, but with an international lead singer. In this case, a Brazilian lead singer for Drugstore. Talented singer-songwriter Isabel Montero. And the band released 4 albums over their time. That is a song taken from their self-titled debut that also came out in 1995. And it was the 5th and final single to be taken from the album. That was Fader by Drugstore, released on May 29th, 1995. Bit of a different kind of dream poppy Britpop sound for you there. And we'll be back with another Britpop song, maybe not in Thursday's episode, but definitely in the one next weekend. But we're going to get back to the football chat for this final part of the show now. We're keeping the Whitecaps chat going, but we're taking it in an international direction because, as I'm sure you're all very much aware, Whitecaps players are very much in demand at the moment by their countries. A bit of a double-edged sword, a phrase I've used a couple of times in the podcast so far. It's a great thing because it shows that your players are doing well. It shows that you've got eyes on them. It shows that they're deemed to be good enough to play at the international level for their national teams. The bad part is in a league like MLS that plays over international windows. It means if teams do have a lot of talented internationals on them, they're going to be decimated if they have to play a game over that international window. And that is sadly very much what the case is going to be for the Whitecaps in the upcoming FIFA international window and also for the upcoming Gold Cup. The Gold Cup this year is running from June 14th to July 6th. And although the final squads haven't been announced for the countries, the preliminary 60-man rosters came out. On the Canadian roster, 4 Whitecaps mentioned: Ali Ahmed, Sam Adekugbe, Jaden Nelson and Ralph Priso, and 3 Whitecaps on the American roster: Sebastian Berhalter, Brian White and Tristan Blackman. More on all of those players later, because before that Gold Cup tournament kicks off, there's the small matter of the FIFA international window, and that runs from June 2nd to June 10th. And what that means for the Whitecaps is 9 players are going to be missing for the Seattle Sounders game, the Cascadia Derby at BC Place on Saturday, June 8th. It's a huge game for Cascadia Cup, for MLS standings, for points, Supporters Shield race, and the Whitecaps are going to be missing 9 players. It's ridiculous, to use Jesper Sorensen's words after the game against RSL, and we'll hear from Jesper and some of his thoughts on that shortly. And it's just mind-boggling to me that a team can get punished for having international players, and I know clubs can choose whether or not they want to play over the international window, so that is also a discussion that needs to be had. Although the Whitecaps weren't expecting to have so many players away in this window, and it's just been the outcome of how well that they've been playing, that these players have now got call-ups that maybe at the start of the year you wouldn't have thought Brian White and Sebastian Berhalter would be going away with the US team. When it comes to rescheduling, the congested schedule is just making it harder and harder for teams to get midweek dates, get stadiums to play midweek dates. Whitecaps obviously share with BC Lions and trade shows and concerts. Also, the midweek dates don't draw crowds. If anyone saw the last midweek action where the Whitecaps weren't involved in an MLS play, crowds around the league were really, really poor for that Wednesday night. That, to me though, it's a small consideration as opposed to weakening the integrity of your league, and you're going to have a big game, a big showcase game, where one of the teams is just going to be absolutely decimated, as I said. So missing that Sounders game on June 8th are Ali Ahmed, Sam Adekugbe and Jaden Nelson away with Canada for their Canadian Shield matches. That will see Canada taking on Ukraine in Toronto on June 7th, and the Ivory Coast also in Toronto 3 days later. And it is an important tournament for Canada. It's one of the last chances to get all the players together, the international players, the European guys that do want to come and not take a break, to play a couple of different styles of teams, that a European team that they're bound to face at some point in the World Cup next year, and an African team in the Ivory Coast. These opportunities don't come around very often, so it's very key that they do have these games. It's just sadly the Whitecaps are playing an MLS match in that window. And then we've got the Gold Cup coming up as well, and we'll look at all the games that players are going to be missing for shortly. So that's the Canadian side. On the American side, Brian White gets another call-up to the national team. Delighted for him, he deserves it. And getting his first ever call-up to the senior national team, Sebastian Berhalter. Also delighted for him. And again, he deserves it, but it's at the expense of the Whitecaps. And I've made my stance very clear on the podcast over the years. I'm always club before country. I know it's a very contentious issue. It's caused lots of talking points over in Europe, over in Scotland in particular, and in England. I know here it's kind of looked a little bit differently. More folk put country before club, but I've always will be club before country. Your club team is your week-to-week football fix, your daily love, whereas your country just comes around every couple of months. So I always will feel way more affinity to my club football than to international football. I know many of you listening to this won't feel the same way, but with 3 players away for Canada, 2 away for the US incidentally playing Turkey and Switzerland in that international window, also going away but not officially announced yet for CONMEBOL World Cup qualifiers. Pedro Vite will be away with Ecuador as they take on Brazil on June 5th, and then Peru in June 10th. 2 huge games for Ecuador, who currently sit second in the overall standings in the CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying. And also away at those World Cup qualifiers will be Andres Cubas away with Paraguay, who will take on Uruguay on June 5th, and then Brazil on the 10th of June. Paraguay currently sitting 5th and in a battle to get as high a finish as possible in those CONMEBOL standings. So 2 key Whitecaps players away to play in some very important games indeed. And then the final 2 players that will be missing from the 9 on international duty, Giuseppe Bovellina will be going away with Australia's under-23 side for their games against South Korea. 2 matches against South Korea on June 5th and June 9th. And for Bovellina, this is an important call-up for him. It's only the second time he's been called up to the Olyroos roster, and the 20-year-old will have an eye on being on that roster and trying to get to the Olympics with Australia in LA in 2028. And the final Whitecaps player that's going to be missing that Seattle game, and again, this hasn't been announced yet or confirmed, but I believe that it is Tate Johnson who is going to get his first call-up to the US under-20 side. And again, well-deserved, really pleased for Tate, but just absolutely decimates the Whitecaps. I know I've used that word a lot. I'm going to keep using it for that game. Going into the Gold Cup, you're going to have the players that aren't involved in the Gold Cup, so Cubas, Vite, Bovellina and Tate Johnson. They'll be back for the Columbus Crew game on June 14th. But the 3 Canadians and the 2 Americans will also be missing that date, along with potentially 3 other games depending on how well the US and Canada do at the Gold Cup. Whitecaps play San Diego on June 25th. They're away to LAFC 3 days later on the 28th, and then staying down in LA July 4th, Independence Day. There'll be fireworks at Dignity Health Sports Park as the Whitecaps take on LA Galaxy. Will they have their first win by then? Who knows? The way that they're going? Very possibly not. But that is 3 possible games that will also be missed by those 5 guys away at the Gold Cup. Now, if Canada or the US don't make it to the semi-final stage, we will have players back for that Galaxy game. If they didn't make it out the group stage, which does feel highly unlikely, they'd also have them back for the LAFC game. And there's a chance, of course, that Canada and the US could meet in the semi-final stage, which, if that was the case, that would be on July 2nd. So there's an outside chance that whoever lost that, you would get those players back, maybe not able to start, but at least on the bench for that Galaxy game on July 4th. And the fact that the semi-finals are in St. Louis and Santa Clara, depending on the venue and the placings, it might not be too big a trip for them to get to Carson in California. That's thinking way, way ahead, though, of course. It's not ideal, and it's something that Whitecaps head coach Jesper Sorensen hasn't really had to deal with in the past, and I don't think it's something that he's very happy to be dealing with now. So I'm going to bring you a little bit of audio from Jesper, from a question that I asked him at Whitecaps training on Friday about it, and then a question and his answer from Nathan Durick after the RSL game on Saturday. Here's the gaffer. One of the side effects of a team doing well, and a good side effect, is players are getting called up for international duty.
I don't know if it's a good side effect in this league. But
well,
okay,
yeah, that's what I was going to get to, because obviously the Seattle game is going to be like decimated with players being away, and then you've got the summer coming with the Gold Cup. How do you address that? How are you going to deal with that? Are you looking to maybe add some free agents before the transfer window open, or are you just going to have to really make do with what you've got?
Yeah, I really don't know, to be honest, because I think it's a situation that we tried to prepare for, but it's difficult, and we didn't know that we'll have 5 guys be called up for the Gold Cup, and they'll be away, because we know that Canada and US will go far in the Gold Cup. That will be normal. So they'll probably go to the semi-finals, which means that they'll be out for 5 games in the league, and that's a lot. And there's 5 very good players, so that's why they're representing their country. So I think it's a difficult task. We won't just go out and sign players that we basically don't need. Then we have to manage, but it is difficult. It is.
Getting this win today is particularly important because it gives you a bit of an allowance on what you can do with the midweek game, knowing you have this very important game next weekend. How important was getting this win so that you have a little bit of freedom for what you want to do against Minnesota?
Yeah, we have a very difficult period coming up here, because we also have 9 call-ups for the national game window when we play Seattle, which is, to me, a little bit of ridiculous. We have to play a game where we have 9 call-ups for national teams. And then we have the Gold Cup, where we have 5 players selected for now for the Gold Cup. I think it's going to be a tough 5 weeks. So we have to grind to get all the points that we can at the moment. And right now, a victory like this is massive. It really is, because we know that it separates us in the league and gives us even more freedom, and then we have this huge game coming up in a week from now in Mexico, and of course that's also something that is in the back of the mind of players, and also for me and all the coaches and coaching staff. So yeah, it's a tough period right now where we have to balance a lot of things instead of just go and attack things. So I think it was a massive win.
Jesper Sorensen, he knows there's not too much he can do. It is what it is. It is ridiculous. And, I mean, you don't need me to bang on about it again. It devalues the integrity of the league. It's something they need to get sorted. Jesse Marsh has already said to me, when I asked him about this in the past, MLS should stop. And they should not play over the international dates. And if that means more midweek games, so be it. If you weren't having a stupid Leagues Cup, it would not be an issue for rescheduling these things. Talking of Jesse Marsh, going to bring you a little bit of audio now from the Canadian men's head coach. Just from his press conference that he had during the week announcing the roster for these Canadian Shield games. I'm going to bring you a question from Simon Fudge and a question from myself just around the Whitecaps call-ups and the impact that this has on MLS clubs like the Caps. Here's Jesse Marsh.
Brought in Jaden Nelson, but also Ali Ahmed and Sam Adekubi. Must be pretty pleased to have those guys back. And the fact that, of course, before you play your first game, they've got a very big game themselves with the Whitecaps on June 1st. Just speak to the 3 Whitecaps players you brought in and what they've probably seen over the last 2 months and how you've evaluated that, especially with the CONCACAF Champions Cup run.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we'll be watching that game on the 1st. We'll all be cheering them on. Really excited about their team, the way they play. And, I could go case by case, but Sam's back and healthy and scores a goal right away, and a great goal at that. Ali Ahmed is, I think, in the best form of his life, playing insanely well and incredibly confident and physical and strong and dynamic. He's been outstanding. And then Jaden, we know his potential. And Jesper and I spoke a bit about each of their players, and also Ralph Priso, and talked about the possibility of all these guys. So, I've been really impressed overall with Vancouver and those 3 guys, and excited to see them play in the final.
Just kind of following on a little bit from that, what have the discussions been like with the MLS teams? We've talked before about MLS not shutting down for various things, So the Whitecaps are playing over this window. They'll have some games during the Gold Cup if Canada go deep. Is the understanding that you're going to take the players from the Whitecaps in particular for both of these tournaments, or is there an understanding that you might use them a bit more sparingly?
No, we're taking them for both. We think they're all three highly potential to play major roles in us moving forward and certainly into the 2026 World Cup. We have 6 windows, right? We have 6 windows before the World Cup, and we are going to take advantage of every one. And I know it hurts club teams when they don't have their players available, but in general, I strongly believe that big experiences with the national team help players' confidence and form, and they bring that with them back to their club teams. So I know it's hard. I've been on the other side. I know it's always hard when you're in MLS to lose players for important matches, but these guys are going to benefit from being with us, and they're going to benefit from the types of matches that they get to play in over the summer.
And I wear it for my lady, the Canadian flag, baby!
I mean, Jesse Marsch is very sympathetic. He has been on both sides of it, as he mentioned. He's just got to think of the national team, and he's got to call these players up. I think what is a little bit disappointing is the European clubs get a bit more say, and if they don't want their players to play in both the first window for the Shield and the Gold Cup, they get to have their way a little bit because they play so many games and they need to be rested. And you want to keep them sweet because they're at the top level, whereas the MLS clubs, and I mean, is going to be likely a heavy domesticated roster for these 2 windows as well. It's just, so annoying. And hopefully it doesn't cost the Whitecaps too many points. I mean, we've gone to Minnesota with a rotated squad and come away with a win. As Axel said in the last part, we're going to have to call heavily for bench, really, for WFC 2 players. The best player on there I'd love to see called up, Nathan Pierre. We can't because he's a Philadelphia Union player, so we'd have to sign him to be able to play him. But it's going to be a chance for some of the guys in WFC 2 to come in, get minutes, maybe make a name for themselves and earn themselves a contract. It's just not ideal. Other clubs will also be hit by this as well. I haven't had a chance to delve into exactly how many. Sounders don't look like they're going to be too badly hit. Jordan Morris, for example, wasn't called up by the US on their roster. I guess we dodged a bullet in a way that I thought Tristan Blackman might get a call up for this, and he is in the preliminary 60-man Gold Cup roster. Isn't on the one for the 2 friendlies against Turkey and Switzerland. And of course the news came out this week that Jesse Marsch has reached out to Tristan Blackman with the possibility of fast-tracking citizenship and getting Tristan Blackman to play for Canada. Now, it might seem a little bit pie in the sky, but it is a possibility, and there is this mechanism in place to fast-track athletes. Jesse Marsch confirmed that talks had been had. Tristan Blackman spoke with the Soccer Wise podcast and also with Harjeet Jahal as well about it, and confirmed, there's been exploratory discussions, just basically getting to know each other, where they stand on things. He would be open to it. He's not banking on it. He hasn't got a crystal ball to kind of say what is going to happen, and wherever the cards fall, he'll be happy to go with. But I tell you one thing, Canada could do with another top quality centre-back, so if he can make the switch, all for that. So while Tristan Blackman might not be an American international anytime soon, as I mentioned, Sebastian Berhalter getting his first call-up to the US men's national team, and I mean, what a year it's been for Sebastian Berhalter. Season of his life so far, improvement upon improvement, season upon season. We've been waxing lyrical about Seba on the podcast now for a while. Had some great chats with him about his development and his time here as well. And as heartbreaking as it is that he's missing the CONCACAF Champions Cup final, as I've said ad nauseum, he made that second half against Miami in Fort Lauderdale his own personal cup final, playing out of his skin to get the Whitecaps to that Cruz Azul game, and now his play this year has justly been rewarded by his first call-up to the US men's national team. So I'm going to bring you some audio now from Seba, just talking about his call-up at Whitecaps training on Friday, and also bring you some audio from his proud papa, Greg Berhalter.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
How's it feel?
It's good. It's honestly probably the proudest moment of my life. This is a dream since I've been literally 1 year old. So this is, it doesn't get much better than this.
Talk to us about the moment that you found out.
Yeah, I think St. Ricky's came in the field and he just kind of started smiling at me. And, once I saw that, I was thinking in my head, like, could it really be? And then he came over and told me, and I couldn't believe it.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Going down as well with someone that you know on the squad, and Brian, although I'm sure you know a lot of the guys, but it's it extra special having a teammate there with you.
Yeah, it's always nice. I think to be able to share something like that with a teammate it's kind of, it's almost like a dream come true. So we've been talking about it for a while, and to do it together is pretty special.
Have you talked to Coach? Has Mauricio said what he
No.
expects from you at all?
No, not yet, and hopefully we'll find out when we get to camp.
Coach, I'm not going to ask you about the Chicago Fire right now. I'm going to ask you about a dual nat that the U.S. seems to have just gotten from England, Sebastian Berhalter.
From Ireland.
From Ireland? Yeah. Born in London, though, right?
Yeah, but Irish passport.
All right. Well, dual nat secured either way. What are your thoughts on that call-up and seeing him going to be representing the U.S. men's national team?
Yeah, I think there's two sides to it. The first side is that as a father and just being incredibly proud of him and his journey, and how he's worked for everything he's gotten. And the second side of it is being in the position of national team coach, understanding that how special it is to call players in for the first time, and when you're building a group, how important it is to have guys that are hungry and have guys that want to wear the badge and want to compete. And I think you see that reflected in the roster that was chosen for the Gold Cup.
The Berhalter is there talking about Seba's call-up to the US men's national team. Hope he goes, shows the form that he's shown. The game against RSL on Saturday night, he showed how valuable he is to this Whitecaps team, and what a loss he's going to be for that Champions Cup final against Cruz Azul. But well done to all the players that have been called up. I know I sound grumpy about it. It's just I'm selfishly looking at it from a Whitecaps point of view. This is the time, though, for the other players to stand up and be counted. And if you look at what Whitecaps team they might put out for that game against Seattle on June 8th, the good thing is the defence still looks strong. You're going to have Yoi Takaoka in goal, Eddie Aracampo as right back, Tristan Blackman and Ranko Veselinovic as your centre-back pairing, and we'll probably see Matthias Laborda now as left-back, with both Sam Arakugbe and Tate Johnson away. If we're sticking with the midfield three, we're going to see Ralph Priso in that kind of number 6 role, JC Ngando, and probably Jeevan Badwal in those two midfield pivots in front of him. And I think if we're looking at a front three, we're probably going to see Emmanuel Sabi on one wing, Daniel Rios on the other, maybe Damir Krylak through the middle. I know Rios and Krylak haven't been in fine goal-scoring form, but this is the chance to show exactly what they can be to this Whitecaps team. So possibly some dark weeks to come. We knew it was going to be a tough period because the Whitecaps are on the road for a big chunk of June and July as well. Whatever points they can get from this, it's just going to be a fantastic achievement for them. It's great that we've got these points in the bank already, as I said at the start. Gives us some breathing space, gives us some wiggle room. Now the players that are remaining will just have to go out and show what they can do. Before all that, of course, there is the small matter of the CONCACAF Champions Cup final. In our next podcast that will be out, as I mentioned, on Thursday or Friday, we'll be previewing that fully. But that is it for the football chat for this show. We can't go, though, of course, without bringing you this episode's wavelength. And I'm going to play another song this episode by a football team. Well, a football team and some musicians. I'm sure many of you watched the Europa League final on Wednesday. My commiserations if you did. It was not a very entertaining game. I had that on one screen whilst watching Forest Green Rovers and Southend United on the other, and that National League playoff semi-final was a far better game than Tottenham and Man United. Now, I'm not a fan of Tottenham. I'm a West Ham fan as well as Wimbledon. And West Ham and Tottenham, if you know, are big rivals. They don't really get on. But I am a big fan of Aussie head coach Ange Postecoglou, so I want to wish him huge congratulations for winning that Europa League trophy. So this episode's wavelength is a song about Tottenham, but really dedicated to Big Ange. But one thing I have always admired about Tottenham Hotspur is they've had some very good football songs released over the years for their FA Cup final appearances in particular. And one of the all-time classics for me was released in April 1981 ahead of their epic FA Cup final with Man City that went to a replay. It was a Tottenham side that featured very rarely for over in the UK at the time, 2 South American players, 2 Argentine players to be exact, midfielders Ricardo Villa, known as Ricky Villa, and Osvaldo Ardiles, Ozzy Ardiles as he was called, also featured incidentally up front, former Scotland international, former East Fife player-manager Steve Archibald, so he also features on this record you're going to hear just now. It was a song that was written and composed by Cockney duo Chaz and Dave. And this is Chaz and Dave with the Tottenham 1981 FA Cup final squad. Aussie's dream. Spurs are on their way to Wembley.
Aussie's going to Wembley, his knees have gone all trembly. Come on, you Spurs, come on, you Spurs. Aussie's going to Wembley, his knees have gone all trembly. Come on, you Spurs, come on, you Spurs. Come on, you Spurs are on their way to Wembley. Tottenham's gonna do it again. They can't stop them, the boys from Tottenham, the boys from Wembley, his knees have gone all trembly. Come on, you Spurs, come on, you Spurs. Ozzy's going to Wembley, his knees have gone all trembly. Come on, you Spurs, come on, you Spurs. Ozzy's going to Wembley.
Chaz and Dave with Tottenham Hotspur's 1981 FA Cup final squad with the classic Aussie's Dream, Spurs are on their way to Wembley. And the song named after Ossie Ardiles and features a line that anyone that was around at the time or knows the song just knows this line as well as Ossie Ardiles, whose English wasn't that great, had a solo part in the song and was singing "In the Cup for Tottenham," and that just became an iconic line. So a song featuring an Aussie and about an Aussie, but as a tribute to the success of a different kind of Aussie. That was Wavelength. And I do miss the World Cup and FA Cup songs that were regularly brought out in the 70s, 80s, even into the 90s. I'm not saying they were all good. Some of them were absolutely terrible, but it's a genre of music and football and music that whenever I hear some of those songs, it just automatically takes me back to that time, and they're a good bit of fun. And as I mentioned before, the Whitecaps even brought out some songs in the 70s and 80s before. I still think the Whitecaps should bring out a song for their CONCACAF Cup final appearance. We're only a week away, don't think that's going to be on the cards. It would have been nice to do, but there we go. That is it now for the show. Just some final thoughts from me. Looking forward to Monday. If you've got DAZN, get up early. 7:01. The 01 is important because it's 3:01 UK time. And the 01 kickoff time, everything's been delayed a minute as part of a Every Minute Counts campaign to do with heart disease and making sure that every minute is important if someone has a heart attack. But it's the League 2 playoff final. My AFC Wimbledon are looking to try and get promotion and get back to League 1. I'll be up early watching that one. Good luck to the Dons. Lots of good playoff football around this weekend as well. Watched Sunderland come from behind to get back to the Premier, breaking Sheffield United hearts in the process. The Scottish Cup final as well, if you haven't seen that. The game itself's not quality, but fantastic to see Aberdeen win their first Scottish Cup in 35 years and breaking the stranglehold that Celtic and Rangers to a lesser extent have had on all the trophies in Scotland in recent years. Anytime any club outside the old firm wins a major trophy in Scotland, it's something that's celebrated, I think, by many, many fans of all the other clubs. So well done to Aberdeen for that. Lots more football to come. We'll be back with another episode of the show soon, chatting about the game against Minnesota on Wednesday night, bringing you interviews, including with Whitecap striker Daniel Rios, and of course previewing the game with Cruz Azul next Sunday. Until then, thanks for listening to this one. Take care, and as always, Mon the Caps!
Going to your first match is an experience you never forget. The atmosphere of what's going on around the pitch looks beautiful, and you always look and go, wow, I'd love to play here one day. If you get the bug, it's going to stay with you for life.
More than a name, that's what we
et